What are some really dangerous things most people don't realize are dangerous? 1. A few inches of moving water over a roadway. And while a few inches is usually fine, you can't be sure it's actually a few inches. A road can be completely washed out and look like a relatively minor flood. Fun story, when my dad was younger, one of his uncles told him never to drive into water a mule wouldn't cross. A few years later he was trying to decide whether to cross a flooded road and remembered that conversation. He saw the next day that the road had completely washed out. He told his uncle about it, and apparently his uncle was drunk and didn't even remember saying it. Lol. Totally agree, but both moving water and still water on the road can be very dangerous. When teaching my oldest to drive, I made sure he understood never to drive through water on the roadway if it could possibly safely be avoided. You never know how deep it could be, and water can absolutely pick your whole car up and send you off in unintended directions quite suddenly, at the same speed you were traveling. Having done both, I would 100% prefer to drive through an all-out blizzard than through a torrential downpour. 2. Driving while tired. It can be just as dangerous as driving while drunk, but many people do it without thinking twice. For context, 20 hours awake impairs you as much as 0.08% BAC, which counts as DUI in many states. I'm a firefighter, and it's insane sometimes driving to a house fire or cardiac arrest when we haven't slept all night. Like, I can literally feel everything moving slower and it's sketchy. 48-hour shifts are wild. I have done similar things driving in the military. Sometimes I didn't trust my own eyes, and driving almost on autopilot is scary. Having to blink extra hard every few seconds, crazy. Honorable mention to driving while emotional. Unless you are of sound mind and well rested, driving is so dangerous. 3. A lot of people end up with liver failure from overusing Tylenol. It's not harmless, don't treat it like Skittles. Acetaminophen poisoning is so bad that our school gave us a PSA on OTC medications that contain it, and to always check the drug ingredients to make sure you don't consume too much. I took too much Percocet once when I had a very painful pinched nerve. I began to feel weirder than weird, in a bad way, and went to the ER where I was told I could have died if I'd continued to take the painkiller as I'd been doing. I did not know until then that Percocet is mostly Tylenol with just a little bit of narcotic, and it's not the narcotic that could have killed me. Reminds me of that kid that killed himself because he saw a meme about cough medicine chicken. He bought 2 bottles, cooked the chicken in it, and drank all the sauce. He had no idea what he was doing, and by the time he went to the hospital, it was too late. 4. Not having enough sodium. There are always warnings about too much salt, but apparently, if you don't have enough, it can throw your body totally out of whack. Learned this after passing out and ending up in the ER. Yep, one of its most important functions, along with potassium, is maintaining electrical potential across nerve cell membranes. Without that, your nerves won't work. I ended up in the hospital because of what they deemed fatally low potassium levels. That sucked. My husband was born with a genetic disorder called Gittleman syndrome that causes his kidneys to waste potassium, magnesium, and sodium. Before we had him diagnosed, he was in and out of ICU with critically low levels of all three, even going into cardiac arrest in the living room once. Since then, he has to take huge doses of these gigantic horse pills multiple times a day to maintain his levels, and his doctor has him on a high-sodium diet. My mom has Gittleman syndrome. I was reading this thread wondering if someone would mention it given its rarity. She has to visit an infusion center twice a week for potassium and magnesium, along with taking 40 potassium pills a day. It was crazy to hear that her doctor basically told her, you need to eat fast food or basically anything high in sodium. Even with all of this, she's a very weak woman, strong-willed though. I hope the best for your husband and an eventual cure for this awful disease. 5. I work as a paramedic, and I think I once had the dumbest human of all time as a patient. We get called for a cardiac issue and arrive to find a gentleman in rapid atrial fibrillation, 180 BPM. After treating him, his heart rate and associated chest pain, shortness of breath, and palpitations are resolved, and we begin to ask him in more detail about his medical history. He was pretty young and seemed a little sketchy, so I thought he was just abusing cocaine, but it turned out to be much sillier than that. He had recently been diagnosed with heart problems a few weeks ago when he had a similar event occur. When he got discharged, he asked his doctor what he could do to make sure this never happened again. The doctor gave him the standard eat well, get good sleep, exercise, drink a lot of water, etc. speech. Upon getting home, apparently, all he remembered was, drink lots of water. My man pounded like 3 gallons of water over the course of a few hours, which is more than enough to dilute your blood enough to make you relatively hyponatremic, low sodium. He was rushed back to the hospital, and the same doctor saw him again. Upon discharge, he asked the same question again. The doctor, utterly stunned at this guy's inability to keep himself alive, said, "Don't do that ever again." Dude got home, and again all he could remember was no water. We met him at about day 2.5 of no fluids, completely dehydrated, and at death's door. All I could think about once I heard that backstory was John Connor in Terminator 2 asking Arnold, "We're not gonna make it, are we, humans, I mean?" 6. Tailgating at 70 miles per hour. A tailgater will dramatically increase the risk of an accident versus being patient and sharing the road with others. 100% of accidents are when two objects want to occupy the same space. And the logic of getting closer to the object in front of you at a relatively high speed seems illogical to me. I think people frequently drive way too close to the car in front of them. Growing up, I was always taught, a car length's distance for every 10 miles per hour. While it seems crazy, that simple rule of driving has saved my bleep more times than I can count. The way some people drive makes me really hate driving. I always point out bad drivers to my kids and why it's bad driving, so hopefully they're not one of them when they're older. I don't know what has happened within the last 5 to 10 years, but it definitely seems like more people are driving like assholes now. It's rare for me to see someone actually stop at a stop sign. I'd even settle for a rolling stop where the person slows down a lot, but even that is asking too much apparently, like just straight up slightly slow to sling around a turn. 7. Garage door springs. Ours broke one night, and it sounded like a damn 12 gauge going off. Can confirm, do not go anywhere near those things. When ours broke, it sounded like a car crashing into the garage. I was in bed when mine broke, which is basically right over my garage door. Shook the bed like a small earthquake. Actually horrifically dangerous, and not enough people know this. The spring is under a lot of tension. Your garage door isn't nearly as light as it feels when you lift it by hand. Not only can installing them be kinda sketchy, but being close to them when they fail can be a bad time. It's by no means common for an injury to happen by it's got potential a fake. The old ones didn't have safeties, so would launch through the roof when they snapped. They added safety chains to them, but now most are torsion springs that when they fail they're fairly contained, but reinstalling them consists of sticking bars on the springs and winding them up by hand. Good way to lose your teeth or even cave in your skull if you slip. That being said, experienced workers install them every day, so it pays to have experience, caution, and know what you're doing. Don't get sloppy. 8. A full force punch to the face. People have died from a single punch. Also, just being pushed or falling on the ground. Human bodies can surprisingly be very weak and very strong, but not as strong as concrete. When I was a kid, the father of a kid in my neighborhood, young guy 20s probably, was tossing a football around with some neighborhood kids, fell and hit his head on the concrete, and died of internal bleeding. My stepbrother accidentally killed his best friend when they drunkenly punched over something stupid. He fell and hit his head, and died instantly. It wrecked him. He spent a couple of years in prison for manslaughter, murder too, I think you call it. The whole time his friend's family forgave and stood by him as they saw him as a son/brother. It was tragic and beautiful simultaneously. Poor guy still mentally beats himself up about it now, years later. A guy they first used to work with was holding the ladder for his dad who had climbed up to fix something. Dad lost his balance and fell on the concrete, split his head open and died. My friend was a teenager. Talk about a horrific thing to watch. This happened to me right at the beginning of the pandemic. I'm an Asian guy and got sick of being called coronavirus randomly. It happened a lot. One night, I saw two guys on the street and they yelled it at me. So I told them to bleep off and then went my own way. They came up to me and gave me a shove or a punch, can't quite remember. The next thing I remember is waking up in a hospital a day later with staples in my head. Apparently, I hit my head on the concrete and was unconscious. Thankfully, there were other people on the street who called an ambulance. The doctors performed a craniotomy, a procedure where they took out a piece of my skull to drain the blood. I'm fine now and will forever respect the concrete. A million blows from rugby did nothing to me, but one little push could have led to a lot worse. 9. Eating grapefruit while on medication. Grapefruit has so many bad interactions with medication, ranging from rendering the medication ineffective to toxicity. It's so funny how grapefruit is so lethal. They were able to put a new heart inside of me with no problems, but if I ingested some grapefruit, I'd be a goner. Yup, it's a brutal interaction with tacrolimus, the most ubiquitous anti-rejection medication. I've been taking it for almost 2 years BC of a bone marrow transplant. 10. Putting your feet on the dashboard. It is extremely dangerous. My physics teacher in high school had a lengthy and graphic description of exactly what occurs when you are in an accident with your feet on the dash. Absolutely horrifying. I think he wrote it after seeing students driving around the lot with their feet up. He was a dual MD/PhD and was a former doctor, and I honestly have no idea why he was teaching high school physics, but he'd go on pretty wild tangents from time to time. But his description absolutely haunted us for a while. It was incredibly detailed, like a full sheet of typed paper, of the chain reaction of destruction that occurs. We had a crash scene investigator visit our class. Don't store anything unsecured in your car, especially sharpened tools. At a full-force stop, an unsecured shovel went from the back tailgate, through the back of the cab, through the driver's seat, through the victim, through the dash, and was embedded into the engine block. 11. Walking up or down the stairs. The most common accident at home is falling down the stairs. And don't leave shoes or other things on the stairs. Yeah, you know they are there, but does your spouse or your child? Will they see them when it's dark or they are in a hurry? 12. Sitting all day. I just tore my PSOs because I sit all day, and it was weak as bleep. I never knew you could tear a muscle from underuse. After 2 months of excruciating pain, 3 weeks of PT, and I'm finally getting better. But yay, stretching and yoga are a top priority for me now. People don't realize that not using their muscles is often the cause of their pain. I used to be a dancer, and when I stopped I had knee pain, back pain, neck pain, and foot pain. I thought it was from overuse in my dancing days, and I'll admit I got super lazy at my desk job. I went to a chiropractor for years because it offered relief, but the pain would come and go. I started Aikido just a few months ago, and all that pain is just gone completely, except for a bit of middle back pain, likely from the desk job. I'm confident if I keep at it, the back pain will go too. It's like magic, except it's not magic. It's just using the body the way you're supposed to. Just taking 20 to 30 minute walk every day is a massive improvement over being sedentary. Just a heads up, chiropractors are not real doctors. They can and will bleep you up for life. Have you considered talking to a physical therapist? They're the real version of chiropractors. I tell this story all the time, but it deserves to be told. When she was on her deathbed, a chiropractor gave my mom another 7 years of life because he caused a neck injury in another woman who left that chiropractor's office on a stretcher and became my mom's organ donor 2 hours later. Stay the bleep away from chiropractors. They are dangerous quacks. 13. Pregnancy. My wife is a medical professional. Our pregnancy was planned. We were educated on the process and what the risks were and what to expect. Holy bleep. Between the scans, the tests, placenta previa, a false water break a month too early, a preeclampsia diagnosis and early admittance into the hospital, a heart arrhythmia for mom and poop in the womb for baby, a long and dangerous labor bordering on a C-section, and then a whisked-away baby to clear his airway. The entire process is an absolutely traumatic horror show. Then they give you your baby and walk you out the door 36 hours later to raise it for the rest of your life. Yes, every day as a labor nurse I see people going through things, expected and unexpected, predictable or chance, that can and do affect their long-term health, mobility, future fertility, and quality of life. Pro-choice forever. Every pregnancy is a life-threatening condition, whether it's currently uncomplicated or not. It should only be undertaken with enthusiastic consent, or at least surprised willingness. It's one of the most stressful things the human body can go through, despite it being needed to keep the population afloat. A big factor is that a lot of women and men do not get taught enough about the risk factors of pregnancy itself, and what to do to recover, and what the options are for proper care and recovery as a matter of course. That's a big problem in the US at least. That makes the situation worse. Also, healthcare overall could be better, but education is the start. My spouse and I learned too many things during and after our first pregnancy that we should have known before, and we are relatively well-educated people. Pregnancy can be deadly. Pregnancy can leave lifelong health complications. Pregnancy can be expensive if you don't have the right medical care, or are in the right country. This is why it needs to be a choice, because even when you plan things out, things can go south quickly. 14. If you need someone's attention while they're using heavy equipment, in a non-emergency situation, let them finish before getting their attention. I work as a meat cutter. When I'm cutting something on the bandsaw, I have my back turned to the counter. A lot of customers expect to get service immediately as soon as they walk up to the counter. So I'm cutting something, and they immediately make a loud noise to get my attention, like picking up a metal signpost and banging it on the floor or slamming the counter. It surprises me, making me flinch depending on how loud it is, with my fingers inches from a saw that easily passes through the thickest of cow bones. I don't care how important your dinner date steak is. If I lose my hand, I will do my damnedest to punch you in the face with my bloody stump. 15. Brazilian butt lifts, one of the most dangerous cosmetic surgeries. There are major blood vessels, deep in the musculature of the area, and if injecting and trying to really enhance the area, oftentimes, the injection can go too deep and violate the veins. The result could be fat or fillers entering the bloodstream and then the circulatory system, potentially causing a lethal pulmonary embolism. A coworker got a BBL last year in March, flew to Florida to get it. A week in it was infected. A week after that she was in the hospital. A month after that she was released but bedridden. She ran out of FMLA time because she was so exhausted from the pain she couldn't work for months, so she was let go/quit. She just got a job last month, an entire year after having it, and she said that it was the first time she could reliably walk. She is still glad she got it. Brazilian butt lifts have the highest mortality of any cosmetic surgery. It's really actually insane how dangerous they are. 16. Electricity. You can't see it until it's too late. Harmless wires dangling around will put you into the ground. Even if it looks good, it can be done wrong and start a fire. Source: am an electrician. I do commercial refrigeration. High voltage, not compared to a lineman, but much higher than almost every other trade. And high pressure. High pressure systems and electricity will kill the bleep out of you, and it will hurt the whole time you're dying. 17. Bleach. Mix with ammonia, basically mustard gas, you died. Mix with alcohol, chloroform, you can pass out and have organ failure. Mix with vinegar, chlorine gas, you died. Bonus: mix hydrogen peroxide and vinegar. Peracetic acid, your lungs bleed. I cleaned my cat's litter box with bleach once because it was particularly dirty. I went through a month or two of not cleaning it because I was a piece of a bleep person in my early 20s. I clean it every day now, don't worry. It was so dirty and smelly that I decided to give it a little bleach wash down. I wondered why I was hacking up a lung and could barely breathe while cleaning it, then realized cat piss has hella ammonia, and I just mixed it with bleach. Not my brightest moment. Thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments where you'd like to walk next.